Hey everybody, it's Joe Trippi, and welcome back to That Trippi Show. With Super Tuesday behind us, that means sayonara, Nikki Haley, and Dean Phillips, good riddance. And it's on to the general election. I don't really mean the good riddance thing about Nikki Haley. I'm glad that she did what she did. This was Dean Phillips. Okay, I got that. Anyway, it's on to the general election. Why I think some numbers in North Carolina are telling, and we, of course, get to some of your questions. Alex promises this time. Alex, where do you want to start off? Evidently not the questions, I'm sure, but okay.
No, but they're really good this week, so we're definitely getting to them.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about Super Tuesday, Joe. Kind of anticlimactic if you were living under a rock, but we aren't, so there you go. What did you see? Just before we get into it, zoom out a little bit. Anything jump out at you?
Yeah, I mean, just the coverage again, that the uncommitted highlights. I mean, that, oh my gosh, Biden lost American Samoa by 11 votes. 91 people voted. I mean, it's just more of the same, just incredibly whacked coverage of this stuff. And of course, the incredible night that they reported that Trump was having, when in fact, you look at the numbers, and again, he's a guy who's losing, 25, 30, 35, 40, losing Vermont. I mean, the numbers of Republicans, forget about the state, is just incredible. Karl Rove held up a whiteboard showing how many GOP voters aren't picking Trump in key states. And his line, I think, sums it up. The high command of Team Trump ought to be concerned about unifying the Republican Party. And good luck with that. So you look at the states. Utah was Trump 56, Haley 43. And, it's a pretty conservative place, right? In, 2 states that are sort of considered swingy, it was, 34% voted the other way. In Virginia, 35% of Republicans. In Minnesota, 29%.
Yep, and Colorado, 34. Yeah, I mean, 3 states too. But those
Colorado's,
are big numbers.
Yeah, well, Colorado, no, big numbers are Joe Biden getting 83 and only 9, splitting between, Dean Phillips and, and a bunch of, Williamson, and in some places they had uncommitted, but, it's ridiculous. And then Trump lost Vermont entirely. I mean, so over 50% there. And so far, Nikki Haley hasn't endorsed Trump, although I think that's probably just a matter of time. It looks to me like she's decided to stay within the Republican Party fold, maybe hoping he loses in November and that she becomes the person to pick up the pieces in 2028. Her hope. And then, Dean Phillips immediately endorsed President Biden. Thanks, Dean. That's great. I mean, what the hell did that guy accomplish? Nothing.
I do think it seemed to me, I think the media coverage was, for the most part, frustrating as usual, because they're still not getting the difference. I mean, those numbers you mentioned are really, really striking, but there was it was in the CNN takeaways article that I want to read. The other stark political reality is that come November, Trump is more likely to be the one facing the same headwinds he is now relative to Joe Biden. Biden has more room to win over his intra-party detractors. The most numerous and vocal are enraged by his handling of Israel's war in Gaza. That indignation will not totally disappear with time, but it is likely to get less volatile. And they also, by the way, mentioned that Trump hasn't really said much on it, and I'm sure he's not exactly going to bring people together on it. Point being, Joe, they must have been listening to the pod from last week, but that is basically
because that's what we said. We said, look, the reality is, people are upset about Biden on Gaza. They get to say that they vote uncommitted in protest. The problem with that is Trump can't, and we said this, can't fly into Dearborn and tell everybody, hey, vote for me because I'm going to deport you and I'm going to have a Muslim ban. It's not even, won't even be close on this issue. And of course, Trump is going to make that even, more clear now because he can't help himself. It's who he really is and what he really wants to do. And by the way, there could be a ceasefire. And if there is, if there is a sustained ceasefire, it will be because of the pressure Biden put to make it happen.
You brought that up last
No,
week.
that's
And
what
that is
so that gets
obviously
better for them.
something
Yeah.
that'll help him.
Yeah. So again, I think the economy, it's still weighing, but it will be less weight. I think Gaza will be. I think there will be a ceasefire between now and November, and I think it will be clear that it was Biden and our diplomacy, the inability to pull everybody together and get that done is going to be because of Biden, and not Netanyahu. It'll be because of the pressure Biden and the administration, the American diplomats put on. So you get that, and then meanwhile, the whole time Trump will be, screaming about deporting people and a bunch of other, great things. So, I mean, and he'll be screaming out them bigly. So I just think in the end, Biden knows the voters he has to speak to bring back into the fold, and these are voters that have been with him. They may have voted uncommitted, but they've voted for him in the past, and I think it's easier to get those back. I think Trump has been, and Nikki Haley, I think, made the divide clearer. He's got a much different task. These are people who repeatedly say they voted for her, and large swaths of them say they will never vote for Donald Trump, that they may not vote. Some of them may vote third party, and we'll talk more about that. We always do, but many of them are going to vote for Biden, and they say that. I mean, they say it in the focus groups, they say it in the exit polls, and they say it, with reporters as they're coming out of the voting booth. So, and by the way, Trump attacking her, also saying that if you weren't with him, you're a rhino and he doesn't want your vote. Now he'll go back on that, because I think he'll figure, he's got smarter people, but they still have to deal with him. And he's going to say stupid things like that and make this, make it even tougher and push even more people away. And then, of course, you still have the things like IVF and, that is happening.
Basically every issue.
Yeah. No, that are still going to be happening, because the right-wing MAGA crazies that he's empowered and put in place, judges, et cetera, are going to keep doing these cracky rulings. States will continue he won't be able to shut him up. It's going to be interesting because because MAGA Mike Johnson, it'll all happen by the time you hear this, but MAGA Mike Johnson's speakership, where he's urged all the Republicans to show respect to the president. We'll see if he can control that caucus to do that. And then, of course, I think it's Marjorie Taylor Greene that is doing the rebuttal to the State of the Union. I mean, please, could we do that every night? Have Biden go up and talk, and then have Marjorie Taylor Greene be the person? Anyway, so yeah, this is what I'm saying. All that kind of craziness, I mean, that they do is going to be much more pronounced now, and it's clearer now. This is now going to be Trump, Biden, and we still got to deal with the third parties, but that's going to be a long fight. But we've got to. That is still, I think, the biggest threat.
A few other Super Tuesday notes before we get off of this and into some reader questions. Number one, if you now that we have Nikki Haley's body of work kind of out in front of us, you look at where she was strong, and these are places Trump really needed to, or it needs to show some growth in if he wants to win this fall. Cities, college towns, suburbs. And I point out suburbs, Joe, it's been very interesting. One of the things over the past 8 years, I can't believe I'm saying 8 years of Trump now, but 8 years that has really flipped around is suburbs. It feels a lot longer
than that. Yeah.
But the suburbs, you could reliably count on them voting Republican. And now, since 16, it's completely flipped, and there are no signs of that changing.
No, and I mean, look, as you pointed out, I mean, college towns, the cities, suburbs, women. These are all, in every state, the
college educated,
women, yeah. No, but in every state, the party, those turning out were turning out. It was an older Republican Party that was turning out, and more men, because they were losing women. I mean, they weren't turning out in a Republican primary, and those that were, a lot of them were voting for Haley. So he's got real problem. And I think Ron Brownstein said, and I think he's right about this, that Nikki Haley really served the purpose of leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for Joe Biden to ride to victory. They know the voters that they need to appeal to. He knows the voters that have already voted for him, voted uncommitted. We know who those people are. He knows what he has to do, and he can talk to them. The same here with the breadcrumbs that Nikki Haley, and by the way, it was 30 to 40% of the GOP vote in most of these states, in a lot of them. So I think, that when you really, I think Bill Scheer pointed this out on Twitter, compared to 2012 with Obama, Biden is doing very well. He's, so, people should hold on to their horses. I mean, the Biden, Obama, there are a lot of votes, for uncommitted for Obama in 2012. And, Biden did as well or better with the uncommitted vote in a lot of places.
Anywhere specific? Well, I mean, I was thinking about North Carolina,
sure,
right? Which I was thinking about, because you'll talk about it later. But
no, but Biden got 88% of the vote there. Obama got 79. Massachusetts, Biden got 82. Obama got 81. Alabama, because you got to remember, there's a huge black vote in Democratic primaries in Alabama. Alex and I both know this from working for Doug Jones in 2017 and on in his career. But Biden got in Alabama, Biden got 90% of the vote. Obama got 84 in 2012 primaries. So you see that all this, oh my gosh, look at all these uncommitted people. By the way, I think somebody also did the numbers. I can't remember what state it was, Alex, maybe you will, where I think it might have been Michigan, where Obama had a large uncommitted vote against him. And it turned out to be like a massive victory in November. Do you remember what state it was?
It was Michigan.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So anyway, which also says that none of this, even these, the uncommitted numbers when they play out in the general, because it's a different thing to cast a protest vote on a single issue against in your own primary against your incumbent. I mean,
right. It's another thing to have Trump staring down the barrel on the other side. I mean, look, I don't want to say they don't matter. Obviously, Joe Biden has work to do. Our whole movement, the family, as Simon would call it, has work to do. But I agree with you, Joe. Rather be us than them. And he actually has a path to getting some of these people back.
Yeah, no, and I said this in the last episode. Look at the turnout here. Remember, this is a guy, Biden has no, it's Dean Phillips, and Williamson is ridiculous. They're getting 3 and 4% of the vote, maybe. No one, lots and lots of people came out, including, yes, a bunch of young people. And yes, in Michigan, a bunch of people came out and voted in a Democratic primary. Even when they voted uncommitted, they were turning out. Their voice is being heard. I don't think these people are going to stay home in November. And then it's not a protest vote over a single issue at that point. It is going to, climate change, all kinds of things. The Dobbs decision, it is going to be a much broader decision. And I think these people, the people who came out, even in protest, are going to come out again because they want their voice heard. And I think they're going to want their voice heard against Donald Trump and this radical right, who's going to try, who is clearly a be dictator on day one. Okay. So I just think in the end, we're going to see it's a goods thing. That's what I'm saying. This uncommitted vote, I see it as a good thing. These are people who came out, wanted their voices heard, and I believe in November will want to be just as loud and strong, and it will be aimed at Trump, not Biden then.
So, Joe, before we move on to our listener questions, one more for you, and I know you kind of touched on this, but I'm curious what you think right now after 2 notable dropouts. One really, and then one we at least have to kind of think about. What is Joe Biden's message to the Haley voters and to the Dean Phillips voters? How does he bring them back into the fold?
Biden already said to Haley voters, you don't have to agree with me on everything to know MAGA extremism is a threat to this country. We need everyone on board. and Phillips has already endorsed Biden, and Biden says something like, "We need you on the team." So, I mean, that's what this is about. It's literally about everybody putting country before party and coming together, and and preserving and protecting democracy and the rights of women to have an abortion. I mean, I mean, all of these things that are critical. In fact, even things you disagree with Biden about, no one's coming for you. The Biden administration is not coming for you because you disagree with him.
Because you disagree, yeah.
It doesn't work that well under dictatorships. And by the way, even if Trump doesn't intend to become a dictator, we all know he's going to come after. But he's vengeful and he's going to come after everybody. He's already coming at. He can't stop himself from coming after Nikki Haley. When any normal human being would be saying, "Please come aboard," he's not going to do that. He's going to push them away. So, you contrast that with Trump calling Haley voters communists on Tuesday night. Saying they're rhinos right. And he doesn't want their vote. So no, this is the contrast. This is the message. It isn't, he is from the beginning, from the time he came down that escalator, he has done nothing to expand and bring more people to his cause. I mean, I'm talking about Donald Trump. He's done everything to drive people away. And in fact, his ceiling has shrunk. It's gotten lower than what it would have been into 2020. And I think the real question here is, I think, twofold. Turnout. Clearly, the remaining Trump cult is going to turn out like there's no tomorrow. There are more us on the pro-democracy side. We need to make sure that number shows. And then at the same time, the third party problem of no labels, Robert Kennedy Jr., Cornel West, Jill Stein, that is still a place where some of these people that, like I said, didn't vote for Trump, voted for Nikki Haley, have never really voted for a Democrat before in their life, and might grudgingly vote for Biden. Some, like I said, will stay home. But if there's a third choice, they may take that off ramp, and those voters could be the ones that decide. That's why a vote for a third party is literally could turn into being a vote for Donald Trump. It could be those votes that put him in the White House. So we got to get our folks out, and we got to guard against the third party threat.
Joe, and again, I know I keep saying before we get to listener questions, we really will. Any specific pieces of data jump out at you from Tuesday that you think our listeners should know about?
Yeah, I think there's two things that are interesting. I mean, one, some of my Democratic friends have said, "Hey, gosh, do we have to worry about Minnesota?" And by the way, so there's some of the things I'm going to go through about North Carolina. With Biden in Minnesota, the uncommitted was high. So I could see the angst there. But look, if Minnesota is suddenly in play, we got, trust me, it's not going to be, we got much bigger problems. So what I do think is counter is that I think Trump and the GOP it's the same thing. If they have to worry about North Carolina flipping, they got very big problems. And I think they might. Yeah, exactly. Because that's what I'm saying. It's sort of the counter to the Minnesota question on our side. You take a look at North Carolina, where the population is, one, it's getting younger.
More college, yeah.
More collegey than it was when Trump won in 2020. Haley took 23% of the vote, and 81% of her voters said they were not going to vote for Trump in November. Now, look, 81%, that's like, let's call it 18. Well, that's a hell. And I know people say, yeah, but some of those people voted for Biden in 2020. Yeah, but we're talking about 3 points of that, 4 points of that. If that's new, if that's stuff that voted with Trump, and there's plenty of them that voted for Trump and now voting for Haley or saying they'll never support Trump. Not 20 in the tens, percent or 20%, but in the 3, 4, 5, 6%, 81% of her voters said they're not going to vote for Trump in November. She took about 250,000 votes in North Carolina. We're talking 200,000 plus Republicans aren't supporting Trump in November. And Trump only won North Carolina in 2020 by 74,000 votes. This is that little math you always make me do. Also, in North Carolina, we're starting to see, big GOP candidate quality problems.
Oh man, I'm so glad you got here.
No. Like this is another repeat of 2020, where Trump would get, some crazy MAGA endorsement from Trump, and you'd get somebody who's completely like not electable getting the nomination. So Mark Robinson, lieutenant governor, won the GOP primary, and calling him a conspiracy theorist actually makes him seem moderate. Mark Robinson is a Holocaust denier. He's in favor of a full abortion ban, total. And this is the money quote, folks. Quote, I absolutely want to go back to the America where women couldn't vote. This is the guy who they nominated in North Carolina, running statewide. So it's going to be really interesting. And, we saw some of this in Georgia. It was exactly this kind of, with Herschel Walker, where the combination of really bad statewide in-state candidates and Donald Trump ended up with Georgia voting for Biden and 2 Democratic U.S. senators, which you might have bet on one of those things happening.
Right.
But no way you would vote on all 3 of those. No way in hell.
Well, and that's an important point, because thinking about how, I know the media makes a huge deal about crossover voters, but the reality, it happens on the margins. And like, if you're going out to go vote for a Republican for North Carolina governor and you're voting for this guy, chances are you're voting for Trump. But if you're some soft Republican who's so turned off by this Republican nominee for governor, you might not go vote at all, or you might not go pull the trigger. So these down ballot candidates on the margins really, really matter.
That's true, but also you could get like the Haley voter who wasn't going to come out, isn't going to vote for Trump, looks at this, decides, no, I'm had enough of this stuff.
It's even more. I don't want the other guy either.
I'll vote. That's what I'm saying. This hurts Trump. It hurts to have somebody this far out there. And by the way, these are just the quotes that we've all found or heard.
There are a lot.
48 hours.
It's a good.
It's going to be. It's going to be. These are just a couple. It's going to be. A shit show in North Carolina for Trump and the Republicans.
Okay. I promised some listener questions. I have listener questions. This one's from Nancy in Massachusetts. Joe, just listened with appreciation to your podcast in which you shared a realistic analysis of primary results. I think this is last week's episode, because she says you pronounced Washtenaw correctly. So credit to you, Joe.
After several attempts.
So let's get to her question. Can you please explain the disconnect between the national who'd you vote for polls, like she points out the Scripps poll favoring Trump, and basically all the results in real life favoring Joe Biden? Why are still every poll showing big Trump gains when people actually go turn out to vote? Why is that not showing up in these polls yet?
I just think polls are, we've been saying this for a long time. Don't pay attention to them. They are all off. Occasionally you get, some of and I'm talking about really good quality pollsters. It's becoming tougher and tougher to poll this electorate, and be right. I'd put it that way. And I also think that a lot of the pollsters are trying to make up. They believe that they undercounted Trump voters in the past. There was when they put their samples together, they're making sure that their samples fit what they now they overdo it. They go one way in one election. Oh, I'm going to fix that. I'm going to make sure I've got more Republicans. So one of the things I suspect is going on, if you base this all on, on the past, you think a lot of you may have an older cohort that has shrunk, but you're keeping it the same or even higher because you're trying to make up for the last time. You think young voters aren't going to turn out, so you don't have as many young voters in your sample. And in other words, they literally, this is how they model. And if you got two or three of those things wrong or just off by a few points, you're going to get polling that looks like it's favoring Trump because you're kind of overcompensate for what you screwed up last cycle with the red wave, for example. That's actually sort of my point. The red wave's coming, the red wave's coming, the red wave's coming. Why? Because you got all these too many Republicans in your sample or whatever that was wrong with those. And it turns out that didn't happen. So now you start monkeying around with your sample because they don't know how to create a model anymore for any given election. So you start doing things to make up for last time. And I think the other side of this is there are a ton of crap polls out there. I mean, basically what's been going on is a bunch of right-wing pollsters dump a ton of polls out there for different news agencies or conduct them for some think tank. They put them out there, and then everybody includes those in their averages. So you have all these polls that show Trump winning; he's winning big. Yeah, because they were all done by a bunch of Republican pollsters, and like there's only 3 or 4 real polls in the average, and all those have Biden ahead by 2 or in a dead heat. But when you average it all out, man, Trump's kicking. And, I don't really worry about that. It's more what's going on. Alex and I've always counseled to look underneath the hood, if you really look at all the numbers, even the Republican polls, Trump stays flat in the mid to slightly over 45, 40s, it doesn't matter. It's Biden's numbers that jump around in these polls. So on a bad day, Biden can go behind him. On a good day, Biden goes ahead of him, but he's always right there at 45, 46, 44, always in every single poll. It's the Biden number that moves around. And I think that again goes to the third party thing. We are headed to a 45. That's Trump's number. He's going to be there. Biden in 2020 got 51% of the vote when third parties were pretty weak. Trump's never, I think the highest poll I've seen had him at 48. I think that was like a week or so ago. He's never getting there. He can't get to 50. Biden, those voters will be with Biden. And that's that group that moves around. One day they go, no, I can't, he's too old or whatever. And then they get a dose of Trump or IVF or whatever the MAGA nuts have put out there, and they move back to Biden. That's going to keep moving around. But I think that contrast will become clearer. And again, it's not, like I said, not the head-to-head. It's sort of looking at where the numbers are, what is really going on. A lot of these pollsters don't ask about the Dobbs decision. They're going to talk about, ask a bunch of questions about crime or the border, immigration, which can move stuff around. But I just think that I wouldn't pay any attention. That's one of the things I count. I mean, I know a lot of my friends who go out there and go, "Oh, this one's great." Screw them. I mean, they're you can't sit there and go, "Well, none of these counted, but the ones that make us look good are great." No, they don't know how to do this anymore. It's being reinvented before our eyes. Some of it is how many people did they interview online versus how many people did they call on a landline versus how many people did they call on a cell phone. You could just have too many cell phone people and not enough online people. I mean, it's literally getting that difficult, and it may right itself. I don't know, but it's. I would just ignore them, and of course, the problem is the talking heads can't. And I said this in past. It literally is the crack cocaine of politics, commenting about polls, and they can't stop themselves. They're addicted to it, and every time a new one comes out, they've got to yap about it. and they've got to see something in those numbers. It's like you might as well have have the palm reader come in and tell you what they see in the tea leaves.
I have one more thing we just can't stop, which I'm curious to your take, because we have time for one more question before we call it a day today. This is from Marie in California. Do negative ads still work? I keep hearing this will be the most expensive and most vicious, according to the newspapers, she says, election ever. Are we in for 8 months of negative ads? Won't people just tune them out?
Yeah. Well, first answer is yes, you're in for 8 months of negative ads. And there's a reason, and Alex and I can tell you that there's a reason they work. If they didn't work, no one would do it. The reason you see so many of them is because, and by the way, it's the same reason the news does not start off with it's a sunny, bright day, everything's great in the world, there were no accidents,
right. If it bleeds,
babies were born.
It leads.
Yeah, it leads. So we as people tend to react to negative information more strongly than we do to positive information. Consultants who make TV commercials, and Alex and I are among them, know this. And so that's going to happen. What I would say is I think you're going to see much more of what I would call contrast. I think Alex and I would both call them contrast commercials that I think that's where on an issue like abortion and all the other issues, I mean, everything that's out there, Social Security, contrasting, a deportation, mass deportation, and, basically deportation camps versus, where Biden is. I think there'll be much more, you're going to see much more of that because I think it's the contrast between Biden and Trump. And more importantly, MAGA and the rest of us. So we could disagree about, whether there should be a 15-week ban, a 20-week ban, no restrictions whatsoever, and that IVF should be, available to any family that wants to start a family. We can all kind of disagree and maybe find compromise, but that's not where MAGA is. I mean, MAGA is total bans, 6-week bans, judges that say IVF is out, it's ended. Now politicians will go, oh my gosh, we got to undo that. They didn't undo it. They didn't really deal with the bottom line issue there. But that's beside the point. My point is, it's that contrast because it's so stark and it's so clear. But you should, get ready. Donald Trump is gonna burn the forest down. I mean, they are gonna burn it down. But by the way, that's who he is. That's his campaign. That's what he's all about. It will be hatred and anger and negative and attacks. The one thing I would tell you, though, just sort of, when you do focus groups, what happens is we did 47. I think we made 47 ads for Doug Jones' campaign for Senate in Alabama in 2017. And we tested every single one of them in focus groups, men and women. And only 17 of them made air because people will thumbs down and, oh my God, what are you guys thinking? And then me and Alex look at each other and, sheepishly say, Alex made that one. But anyway, what's interesting is you can show people like 5 or 6 ads, positive bio, whatever, and one negative ad at the beginning of the groups. And the groups all do the same thing. Oh, I hate that negative ad. I really, really hate it. I hate it. I wish they wouldn't do that. At the end of the groups, 2 hours later, you ask them, what do they remember about the focus group? And none of them remember the positive ad. None of them. But everybody remembers, that Alex, hid Joe's wallet or whatever. I mean, it is.
I was really curious where you were going with that.
But
thanks.
Yeah, no. But what I'm saying is it's how you test negative ad. If you really want to test a negative ad, you run it with some positive stuff early on, And then you're going to hear immediately, because everybody knows they're supposed to say, that sucks, I hate it, it's vicious, I'll never pay attention to it. 2 hours later, you ask them, in the group, we talked about a lot of things. We talked about the economy. We talked about this, and it's, what do you remember? And they go, I'm not voting for that guy. Why? And they repeat the negative ad that you showed them 2 hours earlier. So part of it's human nature. Part of it is kind of like consultants have figured it out, and that's why you're seeing so much of it. But I do think, one, Trump will be hard-hitting, smear, lie, negative hatred attacks. I expect the Biden campaign to be mostly, I'm sure there'll be negative ads, but I think for the most part, it's going to be the contrast. It's going to be side by side, compare the two futures. I mean, actually, compare the past Trump wants to go back to, in the future Joe Biden's building. And come with me.
Well, that is a very good place to end today, Joe.
Great. Thanks, everyone, for listening to That Trippi Show. This podcast will always be free with support from our advertisers and is part of Resolute Square. So check out the latest at resolutesquare.com/Trippi. Please subscribe to That Trippi Show and leave a review on Apple or wherever you listen. You can always send us a question, and we're actually getting to some of them, to thattrippishow@gmail.com, or leave us a question and review on iTunes. See you next week, and Alex, give me back my wallet.
Resolute Square.